The frequent collapse of the national grid this year has gotten Nigerians worried. Now, in the past few days, the electricity grid has collapsed twice, leaving several Nigerians with no power supply. Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, is now asking agencies under the ministry to urgently implement the recommendations of the Inter-Agency Committee set up to address the incessant grid collapses in the power sector. Meanwhile, the Transmission Company of Nigeria says instability in the national grid will likely persist as the system undergoes repairs. Well, so what's the answer to Nigeria's perennial electricity woes? Let's bring in the president of the Nigeria Consumer Protection Network, Kunle Olubiyo. Thank you for joining us on Newsnight.
It's my pleasure.
Well, we've been here so many times. I mean, is anyone still counting how many times the national grid has collapsed? As a matter of fact, Nigerians are now saying until the national grid, as in GRED, collapses, maybe then we'll begin to see grid, GRID, actually work. As a consumer, and I mean, you're of the Consumer Protection Network, first, let's get your thoughts on this incessant collapse and how is it even impacting Nigerians in terms of Naira and Kobo, in terms of the economy? Have we been able to put value to what is being lost here?
Well, it's quite unfortunate. Electricity is a life wire of any nation. And for us to create wealth, sustainable growth and development, we cannot do without electricity. So it's a pivotal and critical sector of the economy. And so the depth of energy poverty and energy universal access to energy by any nation is usually used to measure the growth development indices. And so Nigeria has the highest energy poverty in the world. If you look at the fact that we are doing an average of 3,500 to 5,600 megawatts. The UN benchmarks put it at 1,000 megawatts to 1 million population. So what we have by implication is that the quantum of access benchmark to energy is about 5.6 million people out of 220 million Nigerians. That is grossly appalling and inadequate. And so something urgent is required if we are to be taken serious by global community. Now, what we have in successive administration has been from Bola Ige to Fashola and of late is not putting the right people in the right places. The Minister of Power is very intelligent, very articulate, very committed, very aggressive and dogged. But he's an expert in the financial sector. That we can't take away from him. I've had interaction, we've seen his passion. But he's an expert in the financial sector. And so if you talk about grid vegetation control, this year budget, the budget we have for the power sector that's supposed to take care of the value chain is 400 billion. Already we have a deficit of indebtedness from embed to generation company. You have Transcorp Power, you have Afam Power, you have North-South Power. So many investors have invested in the upstream generation. There is a debt of 2.5 trillion naira short that have not been remitted between the GENCOs and embed. Then if you talk about the tariff shortfall, it's about 3 trillion naira. At the downstream, where the sector has direct interface with the off-takers or end users, the discos are technically insolvent. As we speak to you, the salary of September, a lot of them cannot even pay 70% of their salary because their account have been escrowed or due to accumulated or cumulative areas of recklessness, financial recklessness. And before very recently, the regulatory institutions have been subjected to what we call regulatory capture, where the meter asset provider, the national mass metering program, even the taking over of the discos, the statement that was read out for the taking over of most of the discos by BPE and NEC. I was privileged to run through some of these statements midnight before they were released to the press. And I said, look, don't put this there. So you see that these are you could see statement being issued with NEC logo, BP logo, that was not even crafted by the NEC or BP themselves. Somebody will just be in the presidency and issue a statement and put NEC logo, and they will just adopt the yes have it. So we cannot operate like that. So the major symptomatic element of what we have is, like you have said, except the GREED, the grid, the human element in the sector collapses. As long as the operational grid is what is collapsing, we may remain in circle. Is there anything we are going to say tonight that we have not said repeatedly? For the past 13 years, we kept moving in circles. And so the major concern is that it has become like a combination of ailment of diabetes and cancer. If a victim has diabetic cancer,
that's a double whammy.
Double concern. So if we must move forward, yes, we have privatized the telecom sector. Why it is working in the telecom sector is that the Minister of Telecom, in charge of that, the sector leader, does not give day-to-day directive to the telecom sector. You have the level semblance of 70 to 80% independence in the telecom sector. They don't dictate the prices and what have you, and relatively we have some level. It's not that we don't have some gap, but we have some level of sanity. So what we need in the power sector is that the 400 billion I said that is set aside for the power sector, 70% of it will be drawn down by the Hawks. The TCN, I don't.
By
the Hawks.
Oh, the Hawks in the system.
In the system.
Okay.
I don't envy the MD transmission company of Nigeria, because under the past administration we have the brownfield projects that were designed to improve the network. We drew down $4 billion loan. Even if Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu puts in $1 trillion, 80% of it will be drawn down for cash out, because the TCN, as it's presently constituted, is seen as a cash cow. It's not, whether it's weakest link or not. If you have a generator in your house, whether it is high capacity or past my neighbor, if you continue to use it for 6 months, you must do the servicing. If you don't do the servicing, your supply will be low. If you don't change the oil, if you don't change the bearings, if you don't change the rings. So what we have in TCA is like running on a truck or articulate vehicle without a brake functional, or you are using what we call moleware, and you start buying 2 liters at every point. So let me enter a petrol station and what have you. So it's quite embarrassing. Every week we are expecting an average of 3 system collapses, and it's not good for Nigeria, as a nation.
Olubiyo, I'm happy you nailed it, and we're hoping that the minister will address this and cannot tell Nigerians he doesn't know.
The committee instruction from the minister cannot make any difference. So we know the problem, and if Mr. President we require Mr. President to step in at this moment and introduce this presidential fiat and do the needful if we must save Nigeria of further embarrassment.
Well, it's a good place for us to leave it. Mr. Olubiyo, thank you for coming on Newsline.
My pleasure. Thank you.